Can you believe it? A British vegan meal startup that once pulled in over 10 million pounds a year and was growing at triple digits for 3 years, ended up going bankrupt after 2 years. Allplants, once called Europe's most promising vegan food brand, was a favorite among investors. But after burning through 60 million pounds in funding, it came crashing down and sold off. Ironically, the very secret behind their rapid growth turned out to be the same thing that led to their downfall. You'll see how a promising startup was bleeding while growing until there's no way back. Allplants' downfall didn't make big headlines, but for entrepreneurs, the lessons behind their failure run much deeper than a few news articles. Uncovering the golden nuggets that the media overlooks. In 2016, brothers Jonathan and Alex Petrides founded Allplants. Jonathan was a serial entrepreneur, while Alex was a trained nutritionist. Together, they combined their business experience and nutritional expertise to the growing potential of plant-based food. Jonathan's story is almost like something out of a movie. He grew up in an ordinary British family. After graduating from university, he started his career at McKinsey. But what came next surprised everyone. He moved to Africa, where he launched a healthcare startup called Penda Health. That experience gave him a front-row seat to the challenges of building something from the ground up, learning how to work around limited infrastructure, and figuring out how to serve the most people with the fewest resources. During a family dinner back in London, Jonathan noticed something interesting. His brother Alex, who was committed to a plant-based diet, always had to bring his own meals. Most of the vegan options available either tasted bland or heavily processed. That moment sparked an idea. Jonathan realized there was a clear gap in the market. People would welcome a plant-based meal that was actually healthy and tasty. So they got to work. They started experimenting with recipes in their kitchen, hosting a supper club where they invited friends to try their homemade frozen vegan dishes and carefully watch their reactions. The response was beyond the expectation. Friends said things like, "This tastes better than Pret. I can't even tell it's vegan food. And if I could get this delivered, I'd order it every week." That's when their concept became clear. Frozen and ready to eat. It will be delivered through a subscription model, making it easier for busy people to enjoy vegan food at home. And just like that, Allplants was born. At the time, the UK was in the boom of vegan food. Over 1/3 of adults were actively trying to reduce their meat consumption, and around 4% identified as fully vegan. That may not sound like a huge number in a country of 65 million people, but what stood out was the rise of flexitarians, people who weren't fully vegan but wanted to eat more plant-based meals. By 2018, they made up around 12% of UK population. Jonathan also felt that the word vegan was too extreme and could put some people off.
Here's the problem. I'm afraid to say it, but today, veganism is boring. That's what most people think, right? It's got an ism on the end. Is it a religion? Is it a political stance? Is it scientific? When you tell people the V word about yourself, most people immediately judge you. My brother and I have even been referred to by a magazine as evangelical.
That's why he chose the name Allplants, a name that celebrates plants without the baggage of strict labels. It allowed them to appeal to a much wider audience. At first, this non-aggressive approach worked incredibly well. But what they didn't expect was this blurred positioning would come back to haunt them and finally lead to their downfall. On the product side, Allplants offered over 30 recipes, each including at least 2 servings of fruits or vegetables. Every meal was freshly prepared by the chefs. After that, the dishes were preserved using flash freezing technology and delivered through a cold chain system to keep freshness. The ordering experience was flexible. One could make one-off purchases or subscribe a plan. Prices ranged from around £5 to £10 per meal, depending on the dish. The meals were easy to heat at home. Just pop them in the microwave or oven. As you could expect, many people take it as a go-to healthy backup meal for busy households. So, how did they actually get the meals into customers' hands? The subscription business model was a natural fit for delivery. Customers could customize everything, from the number of meals to delivery times and menu selection. For example, a customer working in London's financial district could choose to receive lunch deliveries to the office at 12 o'clock from Monday to Friday and get a family-sized meal delivered to their home on Thursday evenings. At the same time, they steadily grew their brand presence through social media, sharing their story, values, and lifestyle. Unsurprisingly, Allplants saw rapid success in a short period of time. From 2017 to 2021, Allplants saw triple-digit revenue growth year after year. In 2017, the company brought in just £460,000. By 2021, it was projected to reach £15 million. In 4 years, their revenue had grown an astonishing 32 times.
Every part of the United Kingdom is now in lockdown, with people being urged to stay at home as the scale of the public health emergency becomes even more daunting.
The early months of the pandemic in 2020 gave them a major boost. With sudden lockdowns, more people were cooking at home or searching for healthy meal delivery options. Allplants seized the moment, scaling up to 60,000 meals delivered per week and surpassing 100,000 registered users. With such explosive growth, it's no surprise Allplants quickly became a favorite among venture capitals. Since then, they brought in major investors like Felix Capital, Octopus Ventures, and Draper Esprit, which later rebranded as Molten Ventures. By 2021, Allplants had raised £50 million in total funding. And just to put that into perspective, very few companies in Europe's plant-based food space had ever reached that kind of valuation. For a while, it felt like everyone in London was talking about Allplants.
It was a given that plant-based living will be a core part of the way the world develops. Today we're in a position where we can think about some pretty exciting future options, whether that's extending the product range, thinking about international.
But you should know that Allplants wasn't the only player. So, how did they stand out from the competition? One key factor was their strength in DTC marketing. Compared to others in the industry, Allplants was far more skilled at building a direct connection with customers. They didn't just sell meals, they embedded their vision into a broader lifestyle narrative around health and sustainability. They also knew how to use social media as a lever, positioning themselves not just as a food brand, but a way of life. As one observer put it, people weren't just buying pasta made from peas and mashed potatoes, they were buying into the lifestyle. So what exactly did they do to go viral and build that kind of momentum online? They used a three-part strategy: storytelling, visuals, and data. Facebook and Instagram were their main battlegrounds. Through ads, Allplants shared the brand's origin story, showcased real customer experiences, and backed it all with data on environmental impact. For example, their website highlighted how each meal saves X grams of carbon emissions, a simple but powerful message that resonated with eco-conscious consumers. But still, many potential customers held negative perceptions about frozen food. To address that, Jonathan carefully crafted a messaging strategy that went straight to the heart of those concerns. Allplants positioned its products around three core values: nutrition, taste, and sustainability. While frozen meals are often seen as processed or unhealthy, Allplants work to shift that perception. They highlighted their use of a professional chef team, handcrafted preparation, and 100% plant-based ingredients. And as you know, nothing shifts perception quite like celebrity endorsement. By leveraging influencer support and public praise, Allplants was able to accelerate brand awareness and build trust more quickly. Inside a conference room in the city center, Jonathan stood in front of a large screen, calmly presenting the numbers. We're now delivering over 60,000 meals a week. Subscriptions are up 123%. Customer satisfaction is holding steady at 91%, he said with quiet confidence. A partner from Draper Esprit flipped through the pitch deck and raised a concern. You're planning to scale your kitchen capacity sixfold. Do you really have confidence in long-term repeat orders? Jonathan paused. We do, he replied. But we need time for the product to speak for itself. In the end, they secured £38 million in new funding. With that, they moved ahead, expanding to a 43,000 square foot facility and hiring 140 full-time chefs. On the surface, it looked like they were ready for scale. But this move would soon trigger the first domino in a looming cash flow collapse. It looked like Allplants was on its way to becoming a super company until growth began to stall. By 2023, revenue had fallen to just $6.2 million, while net losses soared to incredible $9.7 million. The reason? Simple. Their cash flow couldn't sustain the massive expenses. In fact, their revenue was also facing problems. Meanwhile, their heavy asset expansion began to drain the cash flow. The fixed costs of kitchen operation, manpower, and cold chain logistics were extremely high. Once sales fell short of expectations, the unit cost would quickly spike. But why was that happening? In the public's perception, vegetarianism is a trendy label, a sign of a progressive lifestyle, and has been widely popular. But in reality, due to a monotonous taste and relatively high prices, a de-vegetarian trend has emerged in recent years. In 2023, UK sales of vegan foods dropped by 20%. Inflation have pushed many households back to traditional diets, cutting spending on non-essentials. Customer retention also became a serious problem. The root cause lies in the flexitarian strategy mentioned earlier. While the plant-curious audience is large, they are mostly trial takers rather than long-term repeat buyers. Enthusiasm is high during the initial subscription stage, but over time, many cancel due to high prices or flavor fatigue. Adding to the challenge, customer acquisition costs have soared. Apple's iOS privacy policy changes have reduced their ad tracking capabilities, making ad campaigns far less efficient. As a result, customer acquisition costs have risen sharply, in some cases exceeding LTV. To dig deeper, let's first look at the LTV metric, short for lifetime value, which represents the total revenue a single customer brings to a product over the long term. For Allplants, that means the total amount a registered customer spends on their subscriptions over time. It is a key indicator of customer retention. If we break down Allplants' business model to its simplest form, it comes down to this. Profit per customer equals their lifetime value, minus the cost of product, minus the customer acquisition cost, and then minus their share of fixed expenses. The result? A negative number. In other words, for every customer served, Allplants was losing money. Clearly, that's not sustainable. Allplants' valuation plunged from its peak of £54.5 million to just £17.5 million, with cash flow drying up and new funding failing to arrive on time. Finally, the company was forced into administration in 2024. Over 70 employees were laid off, and its London production facility was shut down. In the end, the story closed with Allplants being acquired by the brand Deliciously Ella. Allplants shows what happens when a startup's profit model breaks down. Excited by their rapid growth, they rushed to scale, but made decisions that pushed them toward collapse. Their growth assumptions soon fell apart, and so did their path to profitability. After all, In the world of food consumption, change is the only constant.